Ready?
Go.
So, Anatoly, how are you doing today?
I have a story to tell. So we've been doing this project for over 2 years, and today we were supposed to get a demo of it. And can you imagine that 30 minutes before the demo, the payment system went down, and we have to postpone the entire thing that we were building like for over 25 months for um, unknown time. Luckily, the support was okay, and we were managed to postpone it just for 1 hour. But still, you don't want to get this into this situation.
You certainly don't want to get it. I mean, it sounds horrible, but fortunately, I know a professional who certainly wouldn't let it happen. So, hi guys, this is our new episode of the Product Drama Podcast. This is Anatoly,
This is Max.
and today we have CEO of Tilt, Caleb Avery. So, hi Caleb.
I don't.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on today. Really appreciate it.
So, would you mind tell us more about your product and how you came to the idea of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Tilled, we've created a solution that we call PayFac-as-a-Service, and we've really reimagined the entire payment facilitation experience. And so, you guys were mentioning that company was having issues with their payment systems. That's basically where we're coming in to help solve problems for all of our customers that are either frustrated with the technology, the price, the support, or something about their payment experience. And we feel like we've really brought the best in breed payments technology to the market with our new PayFac-as-a-Service platform.
How did you came up with this idea? What was the source of it?
So the inspiration for me, I've been in the payment space for the better part of about a decade. I founded my first payments business while I was in college, and really got started selling payments door to door to small business owners, just going around and talking to them about their payment services. And as we started growing that business, we started getting brought in on these consulting projects for larger software companies, anywhere from like 100 million in annual payments volume up to about $1 billion a year in annual payments volume. And a lot of software companies start with processors like Stripe or Braintree that are managed payment facilitation providers. And the advantage of those solutions is that they're easy to get set up. The problem is they're very expensive. And so for a lot of these guys, they were just passing through the 2.9% and 30-cent pricing model that Stripe or Braintree was offering to them. But at some point, as you're scaling up that business, you realize that you really want to start earning revenue from all of those payments that are processing through your systems. And so with my prior company, we didn't have our own technology. And so we were just really reselling third-party systems like an NMI or an authorized.net gateway. And the problem with those systems is that they were really painful to implement. And so the developer experience was pretty poor, and it would take like 4 to 6 months for the customers to complete these integrations and get their payment systems up and running. And so they were always frustrated, with these systems. And so about 2.5 years ago, I decided that instead of trying to sell these, really poor technologies, we just needed to build our own. And so for the last 2.5 years, we've been building out our custom PayFac-as-a-Service solution in order to bring this to market. But, really just saw the problems and the frustrations firsthand, from these customers that were just looking for better payments technologies and better payment experiences.
How did you came from the idea to the scope of the MVP?
Yeah, so customer discovery was a huge part of that effort. So, first had the idea doing these consulting engagements with a couple of clients, but it's not like immediately I said, oh, great, now I've got to go build a business. I was really trying to figure out, like, is there a demand for this product in the market? And so I spent about 6 months going and talking with dozens of different software companies to understand, like, what do you not like about the current solutions? What would we need to build in order to make you want to switch services? And the two very consistent pieces of feedback that we got during that customer discovery process was the importance of the time of implementation and then the economics. So 4 to 6 months of integration was just far too much time spent trying to integrate these legacy technologies. And the question that I kept asking was like, hey, if we could get you a product that you could implement in 1 or 2 weeks, would you be interested? And almost everybody was like, of course. If we could swap our payment services in 2 weeks, and it would actually be 2 weeks, then of course we'd be interested, as long as you could provide us the competitive economics. And so, our goal was to try and figure out how could we bring that easy to implement solution with the very competitive economics that customers were looking for.
It's really smart way of getting clients' feedback, because when you're coming to them with an abstract idea and you're like asking them for some feedback, advice, they're kind of, telling what they have on their heart, because definitely like there's no perfect solution on the market. So I guess users had some issues in it, and they could like really tell about them. So it's important for them that you really did care about it and you wanted to hear them and then make like a better solution for them. So
And I think what was really nice about that customer discovery process was the customers didn't feel like we were selling them anything, because we didn't have a product. Like at that time, 3 years ago, we didn't have software. I didn't have a team. It was really just me with an idea, and I was going out and trying to get their feedback. And I think that we were able to get some really candid feedback. And like some of these guys would talk to me for an hour and just give me, this like brain dump of everything that they were thinking and all of their, opinions about the market and our competitors. And it was just this incredibly invaluable feedback, because they didn't feel like I was trying to sell them anything. They felt like I was genuinely interested in, their opinions and feedback. And I just, would absolutely encourage any founder considering starting any business, like go out there and talk to your potential customers and really figure out what their pain points are, and then what you would have to do to kind of solve those problems to get you to get them to pay you money to fix those problems.
I wonder what comes next. Once you understand that you have to provide technology solution and competitive economics, the first question is, for me as a technician, is very interesting, because there are so many technologies. How do you focus on something specific, or you have to implement something for every technology that's on the market? And how did you decide what to build first?
When we thought about what we needed to build first, it really came back to like what was the problem that we were solving for. And the initial problem that we were solving for was helping software companies implement integrated credit card processing into their systems as quickly as possible. And so it really started with a very narrow scope of like, we just need to be able to process credit card payments for integrated software companies. And as we went, through the development process, we realized that we needed to add other features like ACH, direct debit processing. But it all started with a very narrow focus around just specifically getting people live processing credit card payments in under a week. And so the initial like MVP version of the product really did not have a lot of bells and whistles. Like you were able to sign up for processing, you were able to collect credit card payments. The dashboards weren't pretty, the sign up process wasn't pretty, but it did what we needed it to do, and that was enough to get our first set of customers on board. And then over the last 6-9 months, we've continued to add features and build out better dashboards and find additional partners and add new features. But you really can't tackle every problem right out of the gate. You have to figure out like what's the smallest version of the MVP that we can get out there, get into the market, and get customer feedback and ideally revenue from customers. And then you can keep adding features and iterating on your product over time, and you can always make it better.
I wonder how did you constructed your team to build this initial product?
Yeah, so as a non-developer, the kind of first thing that I needed to do was find people that were smarter than I am at writing code. And I had a couple of friends that I've known for years that were running like an outsourced development group. And so it really started there, going with them and figuring out like, first and foremost, like how do we set up the technology stack? How do we architect the product and create like a scalable version of our MVP? Because what I didn't want to do was go spend, a year or more building out an MVP and then have to just, destroy the whole thing and start over, once we had customers. And so we spent a lot of time thinking through that architecture before we ever, started writing the code. But, finding those outsourced developers and then like, managing that process and functioning as that first like product manager was a big learning curve for me. I had never built software. I had never been that product manager. I'd never hired developers and managed developers. And I not sure that I was the best in the early days, but I think over the last 2.5 years, I've learned quite a bit, and still not a developer. But there are times now when I'm on calls and I'm talking with developers and explaining to them our API, that I kind of give the illusion that I at least know what I'm talking about around the API and the development stuff. But I imagine a lot of people are pretty nervous when they're picking especially like an outsourced development team. And for me, that process was really looking at like the prior work that they've done. Like, show me a software that you've built before and how it functions. And like, I want to talk to customers that have used that product to figure out, like, is it just full of bugs? Like, does the thing break all the time? Like, how does it work? And ultimately was able to find a group initially that I had a lot of confidence in, and was able to build a really nice first version of the product.
That's great. I mean, because really, without a developer skills, you still was able to manage this whole process. As it makes me think that like it's really about management, because if you're a product manager and you're doing this management, so still management is the first word, and like you have to use your limited resources, especially really in this wise way, to build what you need in terms of MVP and in terms of, because you really don't want to build a product that nobody needs, right? And speaking of limited resources, so you started your product with a limited low budget, and maybe is there like some signature, what separates it from the common product development?
As far as like what differentiated like our product development process.
Yeah, like things that you should certainly keep in mind when you're making a product development with a low budget and with limited resources.
You can't afford to be building things 2 and 3 times. You kind of have to get it right the first time. And for me, I just had this very strong vision of the product that I wanted to build. And it took a lot of time and a lot of like long conversations with the developers before they wrote the code and before they built out the features, to understand like what were the constraints, what did the product need to do, and like making it crystal clear what it was that I was expecting from them. And like the first version of the product that they came out with, I came back with 7 pages of notes and feedback on like basically every screen of the product. I just went through and I was like, all right, here's what we got to change, here's what we got to change, and just went through and gave them like an excruciating amount of detail on like every aspect of the product. And I think a lot of people don't take that time to give just like crystal clear, detailed, like I went and just wrote a story for these guys of like exactly what I was looking for on each product. And so they had a really good idea of what I wanted in my head, and then they were able to come back and kind of build that vision. But it is tough when you have that limited budget and you've got limited engineering time and engineering resources. And so that like planning aspect ahead of time of just like getting that plan crystal clear is just such an important step.
Another question about the MVP. Because we are building, doing some service for one of our customers, and we are trying to remove as many features as we can, so that the MVP is as small as possible. And in this particular case, there are some features that the developer would like to remove because we think we can go without them, but owner doesn't want to sacrifice. Was it something in your case that you had to sacrifice in order to make MVP smaller?
I think for me, when we were first starting out, I had a couple of customers that we'd found in that customer discovery process that I kept engaged throughout the product development cycle. And whenever there were like questions around like, I always wanted more features. As the owner and the non-developer, you always think things are easier and can be built faster. And the developer's like, no, that's a 6-month project, Caleb. We can't, build that right away. And so for me, the kind of North Star was always going back to the customers and getting feedback from them and saying like, hey, would you be okay if we didn't have, this beautiful dashboard? Like, do you have to have, the dashboard? And oftentimes the feedback was like, no, as long as we have, good reporting, we don't need like a beautiful dashboard. It's like, okay, well, let's don't do a dashboard, in the MVP. And so it was really using the customer to kind of settle that debate anytime there was a question around like whether that feature was needed for the MVP. It really pays to have, those customers that you can go to and just get that like candid feedback, as to whether or not they would still sign up for the product if it didn't have, X, Y, or Z.
Wow, what a great customers do you have? Because in my case, customers are usually screaming for more features. They are saying like, no, we need more. There is not enough.
I think it really speaks to the frustration that they have with their current, solutions. If they were thrilled with their current products, I don't think they would be offering to give me as much of, their free time, and feedback to try and, get till to where, they want it to be. But, we've really had a lot of excitement from the market around what we're building. And I think it, to an extent, is because we built something exciting, but I think it's almost more about the fact that the existing options on the market just leave customers with a lot of frustrations and just have a lot of drawbacks. And the kind of couple of primary options being Stripe, which everybody knows is just this incredibly expensive solution. And then you've got people like WorldPay and Elevon and TSYS and First Data and all of these legacy processors that they have good pricing, but the economics or the technology is just so outdated that it's just frustrating for these customers to use. I mean, like one of the big processors, the only way that you can get reporting from their system is to request a CSV file that you then have to like parse out, and they change the formatting of the CSV file regularly, and so you're constantly having to update your reporting to try and sort through that CSV file. And it's like, that's just an unacceptable product experience in 2021 when you could have a beautiful reporting REST API that gives people the data that they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree that Stripe is being loved by developers because you come to their website, you have lots of documentation. It's so easy to utilize and it's so easy to use from developer standpoint. That is why everyone like, okay, we are moving forward with Stripe. It's so good. It's so good. We are not doing that other product that we used on the previous project.
Yeah, and that developer experience is just such an important part of creating modern payment technology. And it's both the documentation, but it's also the support that's available to the developers if they have questions. And I think one of the things that we've really tried to do well is offering that support. And what we've been doing is opening up Slack Connect channels with development teams, and it's been a great way to get that instant feedback from a developer, not have to go through email. And in my experience, developers typically don't love hopping on the phone, especially with business people involved, because oftentimes you're doing your work at 8 o'clock at night and you just want a quick answer on, whatever, question it is that you have. You don't want to hop on a 20-minute phone call when you're like in that, development headspace. You just want to stay heads down and keep coding away.
So you have someone sitting and chatting with developers only?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of people that like a big part of their job is just helping developers go live on our platform. I mean,
Wow.
we take a very like kind of white glove approach to helping our customers go live on the platform. And part of the reason why is because our incentives are aligned with our customers. We're not making any money until they're processing payments on our platform. And so, we're not sitting back saying, oh, we're getting paid all this money. We don't care how long it takes you to get up and running. Like, we're not making any money until our customers are live. And so it's kind of, our incentive just as much as is the customer's incentive to help them be able to launch and go live, as quickly as possible. And so we really take, that job seriously of being available to help our customers with whatever they need.
Also, how do you align your promise to implement your platform into the system within 2 weeks when your customer's system may be a little overcomplicated or outdated and require more time to change?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not specifically a promise that it's going to get done in under 2 weeks. It's more just that you can, if you dedicate the resources and the
Mm-hmm.
time to get this done. Our API is simple enough to be able to be implemented in most cases, in under 2 weeks. And in some cases, we've had clients push to try and get it done in about a week. And so it really can be done quite quickly, and we're continually developing new kind of value add features to help people launch faster. Like we recently launched a sample code project where you can process test transactions in like under 5 minutes. And so from getting into the sandbox environment, spin up that sample code project, you can literally be processing test transactions in like 5 minutes, which is just awesome. And we've got a couple people on our team whose like entire job is to work on the documentation and that developer experience and just continue to dial in that process, because we really see one of our big differentiators being that time to market and the ease of implementation. And so, we spend a lot of time and money trying to constantly improve that experience and take feedback, from customers that are going through. And like when we get questions through that Slack Connect channel, we're always like, well, was the documentation unclear? Like, how could we make this, better? And so we're constantly pushing updates just to continue making that developer experience better and better.
Yeah, it's really important to listen to developers, listen to customers, and really do care about that feedback. Especially like now, after 2.5 years after launching the product, still feedback is always feedback, and you really want to hear it. And speaking of new features that you mentioned, like, is there any specific like a major updates that we should expect in 2021 about Tilt or about just payment systems in general?
Yeah, so pretty exciting development this week being that we launched Apple Pay. So we literally launched Apple Pay yesterday, which is something that
Wow.
we've been working pretty hard on for a couple of months, and that's been a very highly requested feature from our customers, as you can imagine. So pretty excited about that one. I'd say that the next big feature for us is launching our omni-channel payment solution. When I say omni-channel, today we're processing like digital online payments. Omni-channel means that through one account you can process online payments as well as like in-person payments where the customer's coming in, to pay with their card. And for a lot of our customers today, these software companies are really only collecting the like online payments, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table because their customers, like dental software company processing for dentists, people are still going to the dentist and they're paying, at the dentist. It's not everybody that's just paying the invoice that the dentist sends them after the fact. And so being able to collect those in-person payments, I think is going to be a huge, revenue driver for both our customers and Tilled once we're able to get that product launched.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great because I'm more than sure that your customers are really excited about upcoming features because Apple Pay is really it's a fancy
It's
one.
global.
Yeah, it's global, and like I do believe that almost everybody using Apple Pay, Google Pay in their common life, and having it there, it's crucial.
Yeah, I personally get really frustrated if app, for example, doesn't have Apple Pay. So yeah.
Same here. I mean, that's why I've been pushing our development team pretty hard to get it in place, and our customers have been patient, but they're definitely ready for Apple Pay, and so we're certainly excited to release that and get that out into the wild.
So, uh, what did you learn while you were launching an MVP?
I learned a lot for sure. I'd say the best decision that I ever made was bringing in a VP of engineering, and I think it's not just around kind of product management and like engineering, but I think in general, founders have to recognize what they're good at and what they're best at, and what they're not good at and what they're not best at. And I would say that kind of product management and the management of the engineering team was something that I was doing okay at. But since bringing in that VP of engineering, it's been incredible how much faster we've been able to ship features, and just how much better the like quality of the product development has been. And he's been able to build out the team. I was having a hard time, going out and recruiting developers because I wasn't a developer. Whereas he's, been doing software development for, I don't know, 15 years and has a network of developers. And he was able to hire like 5 people like right away. As
Mhm.
soon as I told him to go hire people, he's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I think I've got 4 or 5 people that are ready to come on board. And
Ready
like,
to
that's
assemble.
awesome. And so, you can't have an ego about these things, and you've got to just figure out like who's smarter than me, who's better than me at this, bring them in and let them, do their thing. And the company's always going to be better off for it.
Do you have any tips how to indicate for yourself, first of all, what you are not good at if you think you are good at it? I read a book about development and I think I'm a proficient in hiring developers, but I'm really not because I haven't worked on any project.
I'd say that like self-awareness of figuring out what you're really good at and what you're not necessarily the best at is really hard. I mean, it takes a lot of like reflection to think about what you're good at. In my opinion, one of the best ways to do it is to think about like what do you want to do? Like what tasks do you get excited about going and doing, and what are the tasks that you're like, man, I really don't want to do that, and what do you keep procrastinating to do? And for me, the like product management stuff was always like, well, I'm going to wait on that and I'm going to go work on this. And so it's like if you're constantly avoiding going and doing something, there it's kind of your subconscious telling you that like maybe you should bring in somebody to help you do that. And like for me, like I love sales, I love marketing, I love fundraising, and so it's like I want to go spend my time doing sales, marketing, and fundraising, and like bring in the experts to help me on the product and the engineering. And thankfully, I've been able to build a team, of experts around me that are far better, at all of those things than I ever was.
Yeah, it's really, I think, important to be honest with yourself and like doing what you're feeling like what you really want to do. Because when you're doing it, whether you are doing it with emphasis, you're way more efficient with it and like you're putting your all heart and soul in it. That's important in product. And as you mentioned, really having a team of like best suited specialists is really helping your product to align to your vision. That's important. And like maybe
Mhm.
the last question from me today about your vision, because I think like it maybe changed a little bit like from the moment that you started and new features that you figure out to add like Apple Pay and other stuff. They're like adding your vision, or it doesn't work. So like I just want to figure out.
There's always changes along the way as you're going through the process of building out a solution. And I know I keep coming back to it, but it's really the customers that have really helped kind of guide our product along. I mean, adding in ACH processing to our product was something that I had on the roadmap probably 6 months from now. And the customers came in and basically demanded that we had ACH processing within the platform, and so we did it in Q1, and we added ACH, to the product and changed up, the roadmap to kind of accommodate, what they were looking for. And same thing with Apple Pay. Like, we got out there, and the immediate feedback, from the first set of customers was like, well, where's Apple Pay? Like, why do you guys not have Apple Pay? And I mean, those are the kind of popular things that you just kind of listen to that feedback, and then work with the team to make it happen.
Good, good. Okay, well, speaking of last questions, what books would you recommend for people who has an idea, who are eager to make it happen, to read?
I'd say the book by Peter Thiel, Zero to One, is a book that really just encourages you to not think about how can I make something 10% better, or how can I iterate on an existing idea. It's like, how can you just think radically differently, and like change the world.
Hmm.
If you come up with a slightly better mousetrap, like, yeah, it's interesting. But if you can come up with something that just totally changes the kind of worldview and perspective, like something like an Uber or an Amazon that just like didn't exist, and then all of a sudden it did, and it's been this incredible success. And I feel like that concept and that way of thinking of just like how do you think outside the box and just kind of change your perspective to think about something in a totally different way is so helpful as a founder, because we're all trying to like create something that didn't exist. And so you have to like challenge yourself to continue thinking differently, especially when people are giving you feedback and it's not always positive feedback. Like when you're going out to fundraise, as an example, you may go talk to 100 people and 95 of them are going to tell you no, 15 of them are going to tell you it's a horrible idea. And you have to continue pressing on and just have that like faith that like, this is a great idea. I'm going to change the world. I'm confident, in my vision for what we're building. And you have to kind of have that mindset that like, I'm here to just think differently, do things differently, and just change the world around me.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes people are just think that they're not ready for changes because it's better for them to like stay constant with what they have and not thinking about the like progress and about potential of new features. But thanks for your advice about books.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, not even just books. I spend a lot of time reading like articles. And so whether it's like payments.com, Forbes articles, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, like I consume content constantly because that's where I'm getting data on, competitors, the world around me, like how to be the best fundraiser, how to be the best product manager, like just going and reading articles from people that like actually know what they're doing and have done it 10 times over. I feel like it's just been tremendously helpful for me because I honestly struggle reading like a full book. I want to consume kind of shorter pieces of content and kind of get into the nuts and bolts of like one particular thing like each day and just learn a little bit about all of these different things versus like spending a couple of weeks kind of going deep on one particular idea through an entire book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's great.
Reading smaller articles is so like me because I having a hard times reading like long pieces of literature, but I'm trying to force myself and trying to read the books. All right, let's wrap it up. Right?
Yeah. Okay, guys. So thank you guys for being today with us. Thank you, Caleb, for your awesome story of Tilt and like really got fascinated about it and motivated from something because you really should always have tunnel vision for your dream, for your aim, and like move forward to it. And of course, assemble yourself with a team of experts who certainly support you with it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. This was a lot of fun.
So it was the Product Drama podcast.
Thank you all, and see you later in our next episodes.